Samantha Wright yawned as she adjusted her name tag on her blue bank uniform. Another Monday morning at First National Bank of Pinewood, Montana. The small-town bank was quiet as usual, with only the soft hum of the air conditioning and the occasional click of a keyboard to break the silence. She had been working at this bank for 3 years now. Not her dream job, but it paid the bills while she finished her online degree in finance. At 28, Samantha had accepted that life wasn't always exciting. Her days followed the same pattern: count the cash drawer, serve customers, process transactions, go home to her small apartment, repeat. "Morning, Sam," called Doug Peters, the security guard who had worked at the bank since before Samantha was born. His gray mustache twitched as he smiled. "Morning, Doug. How was your weekend?" Samantha asked, unlocking her cash drawer. Same old, same old. Watch the game, fix that leaky faucet the wife's been nagging about." He chuckled, settling into his chair near the entrance. Frank Davis, the bank manager, emerged from his office, his round face already showing signs of stress despite the early hour. "Staff meeting in 5 minutes, everyone," he announced before disappearing back into his office. The morning meeting was brief. A reminder about the upcoming bank audit, warnings about a new phishing scam targeting local businesses, and the usual pep talk about customer service, nothing out of the ordinary. By 9:00 a.m., the bank doors opened to the public. The Monday morning rush was predictable. Small business owners making weekend deposits, elderly customers who preferred speaking to a real person rather than using an ATM, and the occasional rushed parent dropping off a deposit before heading to work. At 10:17 a.m., Samantha's ordinary day changed forever. An elderly woman shuffled through the bank doors looking slightly lost. She wore a navy blue dress that had probably been fashionable 30 years ago, and her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She clutched a small handbag and what appeared to be an old-fashioned passbook. Samantha watched as the woman looked around uncertainly before making her way to Samantha's window. "Good morning," Samantha greeted with her professional smile. "How can I help you today?" The old woman placed the passbook on the counter. "I would like to make a withdrawal, please." Samantha picked up the passbook and blinked in surprise. The cover was faded, the bank's old logo barely visible. She opened it to find yellowed pages with handwritten entries, the last one dated May 12, 1994. "Oh my," Samantha said. "This is quite an old account. Let me see what I can do for you. May I have your name?" "Eleanor Grant," the woman replied, her voice stronger than her fragile appearance suggested. Samantha typed the name into her computer. No results. "And the account number?" Eleanor pointed to a number on the first page of the passbook. Samantha entered it, but again, nothing came up. "I'm sorry, Ms. Grant. This account doesn't seem to be in our current system. Let me check with my manager." Frank was at his desk when Samantha knocked on his door. "Frank, I have an unusual situation. A customer with a passbook from the 90s. The account isn't showing up in our system." Frank frowned, taking the passbook from her. "Good. Lord, I haven't seen one of these in years." He flipped through it, then chuckled. "Probably one of those old accounts with like $50 in it. How much does she want to withdraw?" She didn't say yet. Frank followed Samantha back to her window. "Good morning, ma'am. I'm Frank Davis, the branch manager. We're having trouble locating your account in our current system." Eleanor nodded as if she had expected this. "The account was set up under special circumstances. There should be a note in your records." Frank's smile tightened. "What kind of special circumstances?" "Government related," Eleanor said simply. "Check your legacy systems." Frank raised an eyebrow but nodded. "I'll see what I can find. How much were you looking to withdraw today?" $500, Eleanor replied. A few of the other tellers glanced over, smiling among themselves. Linda, from the next window, leaned over and whispered, "Bet she thinks she's a millionaire by now with all that interest." Frank forced a polite smile. "Let me check our archives. This might take some time." As Frank walked away, Samantha noticed something odd about Eleanor. Despite her aged appearance, her eyes were sharp and alert, constantly scanning the bank. Not like someone confused or lost in the past, but like someone very aware of her surroundings. Would you like some water while you wait, Miss Grant? Samantha offered. Eleanor's gaze snapped back to her. No, thank you. She studied Samantha's face intently. You're new here. I've been working here for 3 years. I mean new to Pinewood, not from here originally. Samantha nodded, surprised. I moved here from Seattle after college. How did you know? You have city eyes, Eleanor said cryptically, always looking for the next thing. Before Samantha could respond, Frank returned with an older man she recognized as Bill Hampton, the bank's IT specialist who handled their legacy systems. Ms. Grant, Frank said, we need to access our basement archives. This might take up to an hour. Would you like to come back later? I'll wait, Eleanor said firmly. Frank looked annoyed but nodded. As you wish. Samantha, please offer Ms. Grant some coffee. For the next 45 minutes, Eleanor sat in the customer waiting area while Bill and Frank disappeared into the basement. Other customers came and went, some giving curious glances to the elderly woman who sat perfectly still, her back straight, her eyes constantly moving. Finally, Frank emerged looking flustered. He motioned for Samantha to join him at his office. This is bizarre, he whispered when they were alone. The account exists, but it's flagged with security protocols I've never seen before. Bill had to call our regional office for clearance, codes just to access it. What kind of account is it? Samantha asked. Some kind of special government trust. But here's the weird part. According to the balance after all these decades of interest, he shook his head in disbelief. The account holds exactly $500. Not a penny more or less, despite supposedly being active since 1963. That's impossible, Samantha said. Even with minimal interest? I know. Bill thinks it must be some kind of placeholder account. Anyway, process the withdrawal, give her the $500, and hopefully, we'll never have to deal with this archaic paperwork again. Samantha returned to her window where Eleanor waited patiently. We've located your account, Ms. Grant. I can process your withdrawal now. As Samantha counted out 5 crisp $100 bills, she heard Linda and Pete from the loan department, snickering behind her. 60 years of interest and all she gets is $500, Pete whispered, not quite quietly enough. Eleanor took the money calmly, tucking it into her handbag. Then she fixed Samantha with those piercing eyes again. Thank you, Samantha Wright, she said, emphasizing the name as she read it from the tag. You've been most helpful. Perhaps we'll meet again soon. As Eleanor turned to leave, she slipped something across the counter, a small, worn envelope. Your father would have wanted you to have this, she whispered. Before Samantha could react, Eleanor was walking away, her back straight, her steps surprisingly steady for someone her age. Samantha stared at the envelope in confusion. Her father? John Wright had died in a car accident when she was just a baby. How could this stranger know anything about him? With trembling fingers, she slipped the envelope into her pocket, glancing around to make sure no one had noticed. Little did she know that this strange encounter was just the beginning. Her ordinary life at First National Bank was about to become anything but ordinary. Samantha could hardly focus for the rest of her workday. The envelope from Eleanor Grant burned in her pocket like a hot coal. Several times she almost took it out to look at it, but something told her to wait until she was alone. At 5 o'clock, Samantha rushed out of the bank, barely saying goodbye to her coworkers. She hurried to her small apartment 3 blocks away, a converted attic space above the town's old bookstore. As soon as she locked her door behind her, she pulled out the envelope with shaking hands. The paper was yellowed with age, the handwriting, on the front faded but still clear. For Samantha when the time comes. She sat on her worn sofa and carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a small brass key attached to a numbered tag, 42B. There was also a folded note and what looked like an old photograph. Samantha unfolded the note first. The key opened safety deposit box 42B at First National. The true balance is, not what they told you. Check the lining of the passbook I gave you. Your father hid more than money. Trust no one. E.g. Samantha frowned. Eleanor hadn't given her any passbook. Then she remembered. The old woman had taken it back before leaving. She must have meant something else. She looked at the photograph next. It showed a young man in a lab coat standing next to a younger version of Eleanor. They were in some kind of laboratory with strange equipment behind them. The man was smiling broadly at the camera. When Samantha turned the photo over, she saw writing on the back, Alan Wright and Eleanor Grant, Project Ascension, 1992. Alan Wright, not John Wright. The name she had always been told was her father's. Samantha's head spun. She grabbed her laptop and searched for Alan Wright scientist, but found nothing useful. Then she tried Project Ascension and again came up empty. Just as she was about to give up, her doorbell rang, making her jump. She wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, she approached the door. "Who is it?" "Package delivery," a man's voice answered. Samantha hadn't ordered anything. She opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain on. Outside stood a delivery man holding a package. "Samantha Wright?" he asked. "Yes? Sign here, please." She signed for the package and quickly closed the door. The box was small and lightweight with no return address. Inside was an old worn passbook, the same one Eleanor had brought to the bank earlier that day. Remembering the note's instructions, Samantha examined the passbook carefully. The cover seemed slightly thicker than it should be. She ran her fingers along the edges and felt something inside the lining. Carefully, she used a butter knife to separate the papers, revealing a small flash drive hidden inside. Her hands trembled as she plugged it into her laptop. A single video file appeared. Samantha clicked on it. The screen showed the same man from the photograph, Alan Wright, sitting at a desk. He looked tired, but determined. "Samantha, if you're watching this, then Eleanor found you. I'm recording this message in 1993. Knowing I might not survive to tell you this in person," Samantha gasped. This man claiming to be her father had recorded this message nearly 30 years ago. "My name is Alan Wright. I am your biological father. The man you were told was your father, John Wright, was my brother. He and his wife agreed to raise you as their own after I realized you were in danger." Alan ran a hand through his hair, looking stressed. "I worked for a joint government-private sector initiative called Project Ascension. In 1989, we made contact with a non-terrestrial intelligence." Samantha paused the video, her heart pounding. Non-terrestrial intelligence? Aliens? This couldn't be real. After a deep breath, she pressed play again. "What we discovered changed everything, Sam. They weren't hostile. They wanted to help us join what they called the Galactic Commonwealth. But certain people in our government saw this as a threat to their power." Alan's face grew more serious. "I created a financial safety net for the project. I split $2 billion across thousands of accounts worldwide, all linked to one master account. The bank where Eleanor brought you has the access terminal. The small account she withdrew from today is just the key. The $500 is actually an access code. 500. Samantha scribbled the number down, her mind racing. "There's more money in safety deposit box 42B, enough to help you if you need it. But more importantly, there are instructions. The people who want to stop Project Ascension will be watching for any access to the main accounts. They've been waiting for years." Alan looked directly into the camera, his eyes, so much like Samantha's own, filled with emotion. "I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you, Sam. Your mother died trying to protect our work. I sent you away to keep you safe." The video began to break up, the image distorting. "Find Dr. Nate Rogers in Colorado. He was my partner. The coordinates are in the box. The sequence is 7392 Alpha Omega, remember that." The video ended abruptly, leaving Samantha staring at her reflection in the black screen. She sat motionless for several minutes, trying to process everything. Aliens. Secret projects. $2 billion. Her entire life had been a lie. A soft knock at her door startled her out of her thoughts. She quickly closed her laptop and approached cautiously. "Who is it?" she called. "Eleanor Grant," came the reply. "We need to talk, Samantha. They know you have the passbook now." Samantha opened the door to find Eleanor standing there, looking much less frail than she had at the bank. She wore dark pants and a practical jacket, her silver hair now tied back tightly. "Pack a bag," Eleanor said without preamble. "Just essentials. We need to leave town tonight." "Why should I trust you?" Samantha demanded. Eleanor's expression softened slightly. "Because I'm the only one left who can help you understand who you really are. And because I promised your father I would protect you." "My father, Alan Wright?" Eleanor nodded. "He was brilliant, brave, and he loved you very much." "What about the safety deposit box? The key you gave me?" "We'll get to it first thing tomorrow in another town. The box isn't actually at First National. That was just to make sure Frank and the others didn't get suspicious. It's at Mountain Security Bank in Ridgecrest, 50 miles from here." From outside came the sound of a car pulling up, its tires crunching on the gravel driveway. Eleanor's face hardened. "We're out of time. They're here. Is there a back exit?" Samantha nodded, suddenly realizing the gravity of her situation. "Through the kitchen." "Good. Grab your laptop and the passbook. Leave everything else." As they hurried toward the back door, Samantha heard heavy footsteps on the stairs leading to her apartment. Her ordinary life was truly over now. Whether she wanted it or not, she had just been thrust into something much bigger than herself. Something that started with a simple withdrawal of $500 and might end with the fate of humanity at stake. Samantha and Eleanor slipped out the back door just as someone began pounding on the front. They hurried down the fire escape stairs and into the alley behind the bookstore. "This way," Eleanor whispered, leading Samantha toward an old blue sedan, parked at the far end of the alley. "I borrowed this car from a friend." They got in quickly. Eleanor drove with surprising skill for someone her age, navigating the back streets of Pinewood to avoid the main roads. "Who are those people?" Samantha asked, looking nervously out the rear window. "They call themselves the Guardians," Eleanor said, her eyes fixed on the road. "A secret government group formed to prevent alien contact. They've been hunting down everyone connected to Project Ascension for years." "But why? If the aliens are peaceful..." "Power," Eleanor cut in. "The technology the Commonwealth offered would change everything. Free energy, advanced medicine, faster than light travel. Some people prefer the world as it is, where they control the resources." They drove in silence for several minutes, leaving the small town behind. The Montana countryside spread out around them, mountains looming in the distance against the darkening sky. "We need to get to that safety deposit box," Eleanor said eventually, "and then to Colorado to find Nate Rogers." "If he's still alive," Samantha said quietly. Eleanor nodded grimly. "If he's still alive." They reached Ridgecrest shortly after 9 that evening. It was slightly larger than Pinewood, with several motels along the main highway. Eleanor chose the smallest one, paying cash for a room at the back of the property. Once inside the simple room with its 2 beds and outdated furnishings, Samantha collapsed into a chair. "I still can't believe any of this," she said. "Yesterday I was just a bank teller. Now I'm running from secret government agents because my real father made contact with aliens." Eleanor sat on one of the beds, suddenly looking every bit her age. "I know it's a lot to take in, but you're stronger than you realize, Samantha. You're Alan's daughter." "Tell me about him," Samantha said. "Please." Eleanor's eyes softened with memory. Alan was brilliant. He specialized in xenolinguistics, the study of non-human language patterns. When the first signal came in 1989, he was the one who figured out it wasn't random noise. He decoded the first message, established the first communication protocol. And my mother? Diane was a physicist. She worked on the technology side of things. They fell in love during the early days of the project. Eleanor paused, her face sad. When she got pregnant with you, they were overjoyed. But then things started going wrong. What happened to her? There was an accident at the lab. At least, that's what they called it. Diane suspected someone was sabotaging the project. She was investigating when Samantha waited, but Eleanor didn't continue. When what? When she was killed, Eleanor finished quietly. Alan was devastated. That's when he started hiding the project funds. He knew someone on the inside was working against us. He couldn't trust anyone. They fell silent. Samantha tried to imagine the parents she'd never known, their hopes and dreams, their work that had put her in danger before she was even born. "We should get some sleep," Eleanor said eventually. "The bank opens at 8 tomorrow." The next morning, they ate a quick breakfast at a nearby diner, then drove to Mountain Security Bank. It was a small building with heavy security, specializing in safety deposit boxes and secure storage. "Let me do the talking," Eleanor said as they approached the front desk. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with short brown hair, looked up with a practiced smile. "How can I help you today?" "We need to access a safety deposit box," Eleanor said, her voice firm and confident. "Number 42B. "Do you have the key and identification?" Eleanor nodded to Samantha, who produced the small brass key. The clerk examined it and asked for ID. Samantha handed over her driver's license, trying to look calmer than she felt. After verifying her information in the computer system, the clerk led them to a secure room lined with metal boxes. She used her master key along with Samantha's key to open box 42B, then left them alone. Inside the box was a sealed envelope, a small metal device that looked like a thumb drive, and a folded map with coordinates marked in red. "Take everything," Eleanor instructed. Back in the car, Samantha opened the envelope. Inside was a bank card and a note with a PIN number. The note simply read, "Emergency funds, use wisely." "How much is on this card?" Samantha asked. "Enough to help us get to Colorado," Eleanor replied. "Your father set up accounts all over the country. Small amounts, spread widely, all accessible with similar cards." Samantha examined the strange metal device next. It wasn't a standard thumb drive as she'd first thought. It was slightly curved with an unusual connector and symbols etched into its surface that didn't look like any language she recognized. "What is this?" Eleanor glanced at it. "Commonwealth technology. Alan called it a key, but it's not for any ordinary lock. Nate will know what to do with it." They studied the map next. The coordinates pointed to a location in the mountains of western Colorado, near a small town called Blue Valley. "That's where we'll find Nate," Eleanor said. "It's about a 10-hour drive from here." They stopped at an ATM, where Samantha used the bank card to withdraw $2,000, the daily maximum. Then they bought supplies for the journey: water, food, a prepaid phone, and a few changes of clothes for Samantha. As they were loading the bags into the car, Samantha noticed a black SUV pulling into the parking lot. 2 men in dark suits got out. "Eleanor," she whispered urgently. "Look." Eleanor glanced over, her face hardening. "Get in the car, now." They pulled out of the parking lot just as the men spotted them. In the rearview mirror, Samantha saw them, running back to their vehicle. "How did they find us?" she asked, panic rising in her voice. "They must have tracked us from your apartment to Ridgecrest," Eleanor said, accelerating onto the highway. "They probably checked all the motels and banks in town." The black SUV appeared behind them, gaining quickly. "What do we do now?" Samantha asked. Eleanor's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "We need to lose them before we head to Colorado. I know these roads better than they do." She took a sudden turn onto a smaller road. "Your father and I planned for this possibility a long time ago." The SUV followed, but Eleanor's driving was skilled and precise. She navigated the increasingly narrow mountain roads with confidence, gradually increasing the distance between them and their pursuers. "There's a ranger station about 5 miles ahead," she said. "An old friend works there. He can help us." Samantha held tightly to her seat as the car sped around curves, the mountains rising around them. The weight of her new reality pressed down on her. Somewhere in Colorado, a man named Nate Rogers might hold the answers to questions she hadn't even known to ask until yesterday. And somewhere beyond Earth, an alien commonwealth was waiting, for humanity, for Project Ascension, and somehow for her. The ranger station appeared ahead, a wooden building nestled among pine trees. Eleanor pulled the car to a stop behind the structure, away from the main road. "Wait here," she told Samantha. I'll find Carl. Samantha watched through the car window. As Eleanor walked briskly to the back door of the station, she knocked in what seemed to be a pattern. 3 quick taps, a pause, then 2 more. Moments later, the door opened to reveal a tall man with a gray beard and a forest ranger uniform. The man, Carl, presumably, looked surprised, then concerned. After a brief exchange, he nodded and motioned toward the car. Eleanor waved for Samantha to join them. "This is Carl Wilson," Eleanor said as Samantha approached. "He worked with your father on the early communications array for Project Ascension." Carl shook Samantha's hand firmly. "You look just like your mother," he said, his voice gruff but kind. Inside the ranger station, Carl locked the doors and closed the blinds. "The Guardians have been through here twice in the last month," he said, asking questions about unusual activity in the area. "They're following us now," Eleanor explained. "We need to lose them before we head to Colorado." Carl nodded thoughtfully. "I can help with that, but first you both should eat something." He led them to a small kitchen area where he heated up a simple meal of canned stew and bread. As they ate, Carl studied Samantha. "Alan told me he had sent you away for safety," he said. "It's good to see you grown up and well." "Did you know? My mother too?" Samantha asked. "Diane was brilliant," Carl replied. "One of the finest minds on the project. Her work on quantum entanglement was what allowed us to maintain stable communication with the Commonwealth ships." "Ships?" Samantha nearly choked on her stew. "They sent actual ships?" Carl and Eleanor exchanged glances. "Just one," Eleanor said. "A small research vessel. It stayed in orbit for 6 months in 1992. That's when the Guardians formed and things went bad. The government officially shut down Project Ascension in early 1993, Carl continued. Publicly, it was described as a failed satellite communications program. In reality, certain officials were terrified of what contact might mean. "But why?" Samantha asked. "If the aliens, the Commonwealth, were peaceful." "Change," Carl said simply. "The Commonwealth offered technology that would have transformed human society, free energy, medical advances that would eliminate most diseases, and knowledge, access, to their network of civilizations spanning the galaxy. Some people don't want that kind of change," Eleanor added. "It would disrupt the power structures they've built their wealth and influence on." Carl stood up and walked to a map on the wall. "Now about getting you to Colorado safely." He pointed to a route through the mountains. "There's an old Forest Service road that connects to a private airstrip about 40 miles from here. I have a friend who can fly you most of the way to Blue Valley." "Won't they be watching airports?" Samantha asked. Carl smiled. "This isn't an airport. Just a strip of land where some rich folks land their small planes to reach their hunting lodges. No control tower, no flight plans filed." While Carl made a phone call to arrange the flight, Eleanor pulled Samantha aside. "There's something you need to understand," she said quietly. "If we reach Nate and he still has the receiver, there's a possibility of reestablishing contact with the Commonwealth. Isn't that the goal?" "Yes, but it will also draw the Guardians to us immediately. The signal is distinctive. They've been watching for it for decades." Samantha felt the weight of this revelation. "So we'd be making ourselves targets?" "Yes. Your father believed it was worth the risk, that humanity needed this connection, needed to join the Commonwealth, but you should know what we're really doing here." Before Samantha could respond, they heard the sound of vehicles approaching. Carl rushed to the window and peered through the blinds. 2 black SUVs coming up the main road. He turned to them, his expression grim. "They found you faster than I expected." He moved quickly to a storage closet and pulled out a backpack, which he handed to Eleanor. "Emergency supplies. Take the back trail through the pines. It will lead you to the service road I mentioned. My friend is expecting you at the airstrip in 2 hours." "What about you?" Samantha asked. "I'll delay them. Tell them I saw you heading west." He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a handgun which he tucked into his belt. "Don't worry about me. I've been prepared for this day for a long time." Eleanor hugged Carl briefly. "Thank you, old friend." "Be careful," he replied, "and tell Nate, if he's still alive, that the frequency should be lowered by 0.3 terahertz. He'll understand." They slipped out the back door just as the SUVs pulled up to the front of the ranger station. Eleanor led the way into the dense pine forest, moving with purpose along a nearly invisible trail. They hiked for almost an hour, climbing steadily higher into the mountains. Despite her age, Eleanor maintained a strong pace. Occasionally they stopped to listen but heard no signs of pursuit. "Do you think Carl is okay?" Samantha asked during one of these pauses. "Carl can take care of himself," Eleanor replied, though her expression was worried. "He was more than just a ranger, you know. Before Project Ascension, he worked in military intelligence." They continued on until they reached a narrow dirt road winding through the trees. Following it east, they eventually came to a small clearing, where a grass airstrip had been carved out of the forest. A small single-engine plane sat waiting. A man in his 50s stood beside it, his weathered face breaking into a smile as he saw Eleanor. "Been a long time, Ellie," he called. "Too long, Jack," she replied. "Thank you for this." "Any friend of Carl's," he said with a shrug. "He said you need to get to western Colorado. No questions asked." "That's right." Jack nodded toward the plane. "Well, she's fueled up and ready to go. I can get you as far as a private strip about 30 miles from Blue Valley. From there, you're on your own." They climbed into the small aircraft, Samantha taking the rear seat while Eleanor sat up front with Jack. As the engine roared to life, Samantha looked out the window at the mountains and forests below. Somewhere behind them, men in black SUVs were hunting them. Somewhere ahead, a man named Nate Rogers might hold the key to re-establishing contact with an alien civilization. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the Commonwealth was waiting. The plane lifted off, carrying Samantha toward a destiny her father had set in motion long before she even knew who he was. As the earth fell away beneath them, she realized there was no going back to her old life. The simple bank teller from Pinewood, Montana was gone forever. In her place was someone new, someone connected to a much larger story. A story that had begun with a seemingly ordinary withdrawal of $500, but might end with the fate of humanity itself. Jack landed the small plane on a narrow strip of cleared land between pine trees. The wheels bumped twice before settling on the rough ground. "This is as far as I go," he said, cutting the engine. "Blue Valley is about 30 miles that way." He pointed west. "There's a dirt bike in that shed. Not much, but it'll get you there faster than walking." Eleanor thanked him as they climbed out of the plane. Jack handed her a small radio. "If you need extraction, call on this. I'll monitor for the next 3 days. After that, you're on your own." They found the old dirt bike in the shed as promised. It was dusty but well-maintained. "Can you ride this thing?" Samantha asked as Eleanor inspected it. "Your father taught me," Eleanor replied with a small smile. "Hold on tight." The dirt bike carried them along forest trails and old logging roads. The sun was setting by the time they reached the outskirts of Blue Valley. It was smaller than Pinewood, just a handful of buildings clustered in a valley surrounded by towering mountains. "Where do we find Nate Rogers?" Samantha asked as they hid the dirt bike in some bushes and continued on foot. Eleanor pulled out the map with the coordinates. "According to this, his place is about 2 miles outside town, up that ridge." She pointed to a wooded slope to the north. They walked through the small town quickly, keeping their heads down. No one paid them much attention, just 2 tired travelers passing through. They bought some food at a small grocery store and filled a water bottle before heading north. The path grew steeper as they climbed the ridge. In the fading light, Samantha could make out a cabin ahead, nestled among the trees. Smoke rose from its chimney. "That must be it," Eleanor said, her voice tense with anticipation. As they approached, the cabin door opened. A man stood silhouetted against the warm light from inside. He held a shotgun pointed in their direction. "That's far enough," he called out. "Identify yourselves." Eleanor stepped forward. "Nate, it's Eleanor Grant, and Alan Wright's daughter." The man lowered his gun slightly. "Eleanor, my God, I thought you were dead." His voice cracked with emotion. "And did you say Alan's daughter?" "Yes," Eleanor said. "This is Samantha." Nate Rogers was tall and thin, with a gray beard and deep lines etched into his face. His eyes, however, were bright and alert as he studied Samantha. "You have your mother's eyes," he said softly. "Come in, quickly, it's not safe out here." Inside, the cabin was simple but comfortable. One wall was covered with electronic equipment, computers, monitors, and devices Samantha didn't recognize. "Carl Wilson says the frequency should be lowered by 0.3 terahertz, Eleanor said as Nate closed and locked the door behind them. Nate froze, then nodded slowly. "So Carl is still alive too. Good." He gestured for them to sit at a small wooden table. "You must be hungry. Let me get you something." As they ate a simple meal of beans and cornbread, Nate watched Samantha with wonder in his eyes. "The last time I saw you, you were just a baby," he said. "Alan was so proud of you, he called you his star child." "Why?" Samantha asked. "Because you were the first human child born after we made contact with the Commonwealth. In a way, you represented the future he was fighting for." When they finished eating, Nate turned serious. "Now tell me why you're here. After all these years, why come looking for me now?" Eleanor explained everything, finding Samantha at the bank, the message from Alan, the Guardians pursuing them. "So, they're still active," Nate said grimly. "I'm not surprised. They've sent people to check on me twice in the past year." "We have this," Samantha said, showing him the strange metal device they'd found in the safety deposit box. Nate's eyes widened. "The Commonwealth key?" He took it reverently. "Alan said he'd hidden it somewhere safe." "What does it do?" Samantha asked. "It's a quantum communication device. It can establish a direct link to the Commonwealth network, bypassing conventional communication methods." He looked at them seriously. "If we use this, the Guardians will know immediately. Their monitoring systems are specifically designed to detect this technology." "Is it worth the risk?" Eleanor asked. Nate smiled sadly. "That's what Alan always asked too." He walked to the window and looked out at the stars appearing in the darkening sky. "I've been waiting 30 years to answer that question, and my answer is yes." He took the device to his wall of equipment. "It will take me about an hour to integrate this and adjust the frequency as Carl suggested. You should rest." Samantha lay down on a small cot but couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with everything that had happened. Just 5 days ago, she had been a bank teller with an ordinary life. Now she was in a cabin in the Colorado mountains, about to help re-establish contact with an alien civilization. Nate worked methodically, connecting the Commonwealth key to his equipment. Eleanor sat beside him, occasionally helping when he needed an extra pair of hands. Finally, Nate called Samantha over. "It's ready. When I activate this, it will send a signal directly to the Commonwealth network. If they're still monitoring Earth, and I believe they are, they'll respond." "What will happen then?" Samantha asked. "I don't know," Nate admitted. "It's been 30 years, but your father believed they would help us, that they wanted to welcome humanity into their community of civilizations." "Do it," Samantha said firmly. Nate pressed a sequence of buttons. The device began to glow with a soft blue light. The computers hummed, displays showing strange patterns and sequences. "It's working," Nate whispered. "The signal is transmitting." Suddenly, all the equipment in the cabin went dark. Then the lights flickered and died. "What happened?" Eleanor asked, alarmed. "I don't know," Nate said, checking his equipment. "It's like something drained all the power." A bright light filled the cabin, streaming in through the windows. It wasn't the harsh beam of searchlights, but a soft, pulsing glow that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "They're here," Nate said, his voice filled with awe. They rushed outside. Hovering above the cabin was a craft unlike anything Samantha had ever seen. It wasn't large, perhaps the size of a bus, but it glowed with shifting patterns of light that seemed to flow across its surface. "A Commonwealth scout ship," Eleanor breathed. After all these years, a beam of light extended from the craft to the ground in front of them. Within the light appeared a figure, Humanoid, but clearly not human, with elongated limbs and a head that seemed too large for its slender body. "Greetings," it said, its voice oddly musical. "We have been waiting for your signal." Before anyone could respond, the sound of vehicles broke the silence. Headlights appeared on the road below, moving quickly up the ridge. "The Guardians," Eleanor said. They detected the signal. The alien turned toward the approaching vehicles. "Your species remains divided on the question of contact. This has been the obstacle." "Please," Samantha stepped forward. "My father, Alan Wright, believed humanity was ready to join the Commonwealth. He gave his life for that belief." The alien studied her. "You are the child, the one born after first contact." It seemed to come to a decision. "Come with us now, time grows short." "All of us?" Nate asked. "All who choose to come." The vehicles were getting closer. Samantha could see multiple black SUVs now, bouncing up the rough road toward the cabin. "What about the rest of humanity?" Eleanor asked. "That will depend on what happens next," the alien replied. "Those who oppose contact are nearly here. The choices made tonight will determine your species' path forward." Samantha looked at Eleanor and Nate, then back at the approaching vehicles. The Guardians had nearly reached them. In moments, they would be here with their guns and their fear of change. She thought of her father, who had given everything to make this moment possible. Of her mother, who had died protecting this future. Of the ordinary life she had left behind at First National Bank. And she made her choice. The world would never be the same again.